It all started on a cold December evening. The city was alive with people happily scurrying from shop to shop, preparing for the upcoming Christmas holiday, like ants swarming over a dropped popsicle. But on the seedy side of Manhattan, Blackie Schwartz sat alone behind a small desk in a decrepit room of a cheap flop house. With a broad smile on his face, he was counting out several wrapped bundles of $100 bills. He was so caught up in his count that he didn't notice a dark shadow entering the room until the figure appeared before him. As he looked up, a shocked wave of fear and confused recognition swept over him. As he started to rise, the intruder raised his gun and fired point blank as Blackie tried desperately to dive for cover, lying on the floor with life draining from his body. The intruder gathered up the money along with a package from the desk. He strolled out into the hallway. In this part of town, people knew it was better to stay behind locked doors at the sound of gunfire, and quietly left as Blackie slowly bled to death. The next morning, as I sat in my new office admiring the lettering the painter just finished on my door, Josiah Monroe, private detective, as I reached into the bottom drawer of my desk to pull out a bottle of scotch for breakfast, there came a knock at my door. Without waiting for permission, in walked a little well-dressed man with beady eyes. The scent of his rancid, sour perfume preceded him. I stared at him as I said, "I don't remember saying come in." In an apologetic tone, he said,
"So sorry, Mr. Monroe, but I've come to ask your assistance in a most serious matter."
"Who are you?" I replied.
"Excuse me again. My name is Nicoli Baca. My employer sent me to acquire your services. You see, a certain business transaction had gone astray, and my employer is most anxious for the return of his property."
"A business transaction?" I said, as I poured myself a belt of scotch. "Why come to me instead of the cops?"
No police. That is one thing my employer insists on. The matter must be handled with the utmost discretion. I assure you, you'll be rewarded most handsomely. You see, we had hired a hoodlum, Blackie Schwartz, to deliver a certain package to me after paying for delivery. Unfortunately, he met an early departure from the living, with both the money and our package nowhere to be found.
"And that's where I come in?"
"Precisely, Mr. Monroe. Find both as quickly as you can."
"Before I can decide to agree, I'd like to know who your employer is." Baca flinched.
"I'm so sorry. His identity must remain secret."
"I see. And just how handsomely will I be rewarded?" Baca took an envelope from his pocket.
"I believe $50,000 would be sufficient. Here is $5,000 as a retainer."
"I'll consider your offer. Where can I find you?" He stood by the door.
"I'm staying at the Hotel Belvedere. When can I expect your decision?"
"I'll be by tomorrow. I want to check out a few things first." With a slight hesitation as he reached for the door.
"I trust you'll return the retainer if you decide otherwise."
"Don't worry, it's safe with me till then." Baca's eyes narrowed.
"Very well, Mr. Monroe, till tomorrow."
Standing looking out from the terrace of her penthouse apartment, Candace Kane took a slow drag from the cigarette at the end of a silver cigarette holder. She slowly turned and entered the living room.
"We have a problem,"
she said to Dirk McGuire, sitting on the couch with the package and the money.
"What problem? We got the package back and $1 million to boot."
"You idiot. The $1 million, you fool. Blackie had double-crossed me when he stolen the package. That money belonged to somebody who wanted the plates as much as I do."
"What plates?"
"Open the package."
He did as he was told, and on the table laid 2 silver rectangular plates.
"Oh, counterfeit double sawbuck plates."
"They're not counterfeit. They're real. And there's a million reasons why somebody else knows that too."
Sitting in shadow of a private room at the back of Joe's Diner, just across the bridge in New Jersey, was Baca's employer. Baca stood before him, wiping the sweat from his forehead. He had reason to be nervous. His employer was known on the street as the architect, the unknown head of the largest crime syndicate in the city.
"Well, Nicky, was Mr. Monroe agreeable to my proposition?"
With a slight quiver on his lips, Nikolai answered,
"Not actually. He promised to inform me of his decision tomorrow."
"I see.
Calmly, the architect said.
So, I take it he didn't take the money you offered?"
Now, Baca began to shake.
"No, he has it, but I'm sure he'll take the job. Most assuredly, I'm certain."
The architect sighed.
"You know it was against my better judgment when I allowed you to handle matters with Blackie, and we know how that turned out. Do not fail me again, Nicky. I'd hate to have to replace you."
You know, $50,000 may be a lot of money, but it probably comes with a lot of trouble. Blackie was a two-bit second-story man. So good at his trade he never got caught. He worked freelanced for whoever appreciated his talents. And I also knew that if I didn't agree to play along, what little I did know would lead to an early grave. A target on my back was the last thing I needed.
I'm so glad to see you, Mr. Monroe. I take it you decided to accept my offer.
Not so fast, Nikki. After you tell me more about what I'm supposed to find and why.
It is of astronomical value, so much so that Blackie was paid $1 million to obtain it, which he did. Unfortunately, he met his demise before I could take delivery. You are to find out who has it and retrieve both it and the money. As far as the perpetrators are concerned, we will deal with them accordingly.
And if I refuse? I asked, as stone-faced as possible.
Please don't, Mr. Monroe. Things can become quite ugly.
He sneered. Okay, Nikki, you got your boy, but my fee is a cool $100,000.
Very well, Mr. Monroe.
I knew that the only thing that would keep me alive instead of floating in the East River was whatever was in that package. Candace, known to the underworld as Candy Cane, sat in her penthouse apartment, pondering her dilemma. Even though she herself controlled the Lower East Side, it was with the approval of the architect. As long as she greased his palm, she had kept her plans for plates to herself. Yeah, Dirk had retrieved the plates, but he wasn't supposed to kill Blackie. Across from her was Hank the enforcer teller.
You know, Candy, these plates are useless without the paper.
Of course, I know. I didn't call for you to state the obvious. Blackie had the deal with an engraver at the Mint for the plates, but Dirk messed up before I could find out who has the paper. And that $1 million scares the bejesus out of me. It must belong to the architect. Blackie must have made a better deal, the little rat.
You mean he's not in on it? Candy, are you crazy? He'll kill us all.
Shut up, Hank. He must never find out. Find this engraver and bring him to me. He must be shaking in his boots by now. He knows who has the paper. Find him, Hank. I'm sure he'll sing like a canary. Now get out and get to work.
I felt like a fly caught in a spider's web, struggling to make my escape. All I had to go on was lying on a slab in the city morgue. I decided to call in a favor owed me from Detective Sergeant O'Reilly of the New York City Homicide Squad. Hi, Bill. How's tricks?
Monroe, what brings you downtown? Another baby had his lollipop swapped.
Not quite. What do you know about the Blackie Swartz murder? I asked as a matter of curiosity.
Blackie? Just another gangland snuffing. He probably opened the wrong safe.
What gives? I answered.
Well, not much. We found 6 shell casing from a .38, along with racing forms and some punched train tickets. Other than that, nothing else.
Did you follow up on the tickets?
They're in here along with everything else. His mug shot and personal belongings. Take them. Maybe they can be of some use to you. I've got bigger fish to fry.
Thanks, Bill, I said. If I find out anything, I'll let you know.
Don't bother, I could care less.
Nicky Baca sat in his hotel room trying to win at solitaire, but the cards seemed to be stacked against him. As he reshuffled the cards, the phone rang. He picked up the receiver.
Hello?
At the other end, the voice of the architect calmly informed him of recent events.
My people down at headquarters informs me that Monroe made a little appearance to visit a Sergeant O'Reilly.
The architect was good. He had his tentacles stretched out all over the city.
It seems he has acquired Blackie's file. You, little Nicky, are to have him followed closely. Keep me informed of his progress. Once he has my package and learns the whereabouts of my money, silence him forever. I hope you understand the circumstances if you fail to fulfill my desire.
He understood the pickle he was in. The architect wasn't the only one with connections downtown. Candy Cane collected informers like a kid collected marbles. Now she knew that I had been asking questions about Blackie. She charged the task to Hank to have his goons follow me as well. I was hotter than a broken egg boiling on the sidewalk and didn't know it. Once back in my office, I scattered the contents of the folder on my desk. Nothing stood out at first, but at second glance the train tickets attracted my attention. 4 of them were used round-trip tickets to Washington, D.C., and 1 unused ticket for Dalton, Massachusetts. Why Dalton? And stashed in the back of his wallet was a crisp, brand-new dollar bill missing its left corner. A means of identification, perhaps? What was in Dalton? Okay, I wasn't the smartest person in New York, but the professor most probably was. He was so smart he was banned from all the radio quiz shows. Time to give him a ring. He answered after the 5th ring. "Hello, Professor, this is Monroe. What do you know about Dalton, Massachusetts?" He chuckled at the other end.
Why, my boy, it is the home of the Crane and Company.
"Is that important?" I asked.
Only if you're interested in paper money is printed on. They've been providing it to the Bureau of Engraving since 1879. Why do you ask, Josiah?
Oh, I just wanted to settle a bet, knowing he didn't believe me.
Sure, my boy, just be careful,
he said with concern over the phone. I didn't have to be a genius to answer the $100,000 question. Paper in the Bureau of Engraving added up. The package most likely were engraving plates. "Don't worry, Professor, I always am." Just as I began to hang up, I heard a slight click. I rose to the window, slowly pulled back a little of the curtain, and wouldn't you know it, right? Down on the street was a strange delivery truck parked right next to the telephone pole. Some people don't understand the meaning of private detective, I joked to myself. It was time to hot-foot it out of town and down to D.C. and headed out down the street. I could almost feel the intensity of the eyes of the hoods. I was sure that they were tracking me, but I had been tailed before. I walked on for 3 blocks and headed down the subway stairs. Sure enough, the clicks of the heels of their patent leather shoes echoed behind me. I dropped my nickel in the toll stall and headed to the platform for the 8 train uptown. There were 2 of them. The train was right on time. Once the doors opened, I slipped inside, and at the other end of the car, so did Mutt and Jeff. Just before the doors shut, I slipped back out the door. I turned and waved goodbye to the 2 as they struggled to try to open the door. Well, the plot thickens, as they say in B-movies. Obviously, someone knew where I could be headed, but which one? D.C. or Dalton? I knew the train and the bus stations were out of the question, so I found a cheap used car. For the next 200 miles, I wondered if my old pal Tom Flattery of the U.S. Treasury would be glad to see me. I was smart enough to know better than showing up at the front door of the Treasury building. Instead, I called good old Tom from a phone booth at a filling station in Georgetown. Needless to say, old Tom wasn't thrilled to hear from me.
"What can you possibly want from me, Monroe?"
He barked loudly in my ear. "Nothing much. I was just wondering if any etchings of dead presidents might be missing?" As I tossed out the bait. After a long pause, Flattery told me to meet him at a bar on Georgia Avenue in half an hour. The ambience of the Liberty Bar and Grill left a lot to be desired. The small establishment was dark, mostly empty, and stank of stale beer. It wasn't long before Tom showed up. He sat at my table and leaned over close to my face and angrily asked,
"Even Hoover doesn't know about the stolen $20 plates. How does a gumshoe like you know? And what do you know about Seymour Sloan? What can you possibly want from me, Monroe?"
"Seymour Sloan?" I said in a way that implied I knew.
"Don't play games with me, Monroe. You know he's stolen those plates and skipped town before we knew they were missing. Or spill Monroe? I've become a very impatient man."
"Relax, Tommy boy. You got the wrong idea. I was hired to investigate the murder of Blackie Swartz back in New York. It seems he was involved in counterfeiting. I found punched train tickets for D.C. he had on him. They provided a hunch, and I thought I'd ask you about it." I bluffed with the straightest face I could muster. Flattery stared right back at me.
"You expect me to believe that pile of horse manure?"
"Scout's honor," I fired back.
"Look, Monroe, you're beginning to stink up the joint. When I find out what you're up to, there isn't a rock large enough for you to hide under. I suggest you head back to New York. Do your snooping up there. If you know what's good for you, you'll forget about Sloan and the plates. Pay the tab and get your butt out of town."
The plates were real, and I knew who took them. Talk about blind luck. I never thought when I baited my hook that Flattery would swallow it hook, line, and sinker. Heading back to New York might make sense, but I had to find Sloan. And thanks to Flattery, I was sure at least a couple of G-men had a watchful eye on me, just to make sure I was headed north. I made it easy for them as I headed up US Highway 1 into Maryland. After a while, I settled down in a roadside motel. If Sloan was anywhere, I was sure it would be the only place the feds didn't know about, Dalton, Massachusetts. But I didn't know what he looked like. His address was easy, listed right there in the DC phone book, Seymour and Gladys Sloan. I was sure the feds would have the home under surveillance, just in case he returned. So before heading to Silver Spring, I stopped by a uniform supply store and a costume shop to put together a rather convincing city worker ensemble, complete with clipboard and cap. Mrs. Sloan was about to have her meter read. It worked like a charm. When I got to Sloan's house and walked up and knocked on the front door, "Hello, Mrs. Sloan. Could I trouble you for a glass of water?"
But of course,
she said as she ushered me in.
"Here, have a seat in the living room. I have cold water in the icebox."
As she scurried for the kitchen. Sitting there on the lamp table was a picture of Gladys and Seymour. I took out the little spy camera from my pocket and took a quick snapshot. When she returned, she asked about Sidney, the regular meter reader. He had a car accident, not too serious. He should back next month. I lied. Dalton was a small town of about 4,000 residents. I registered at the hotel as Dr. Dudley Jones, professor of American Revolutionary History, Dartmouth College. And I had the corduroy suit with elbow patches and a pipe to prove it. And I was sure Sloan was somewhere in town, and unless he was on a diet, he had to eat. Fortunately, this town offered just a handful of diners, grills, and restaurants. As long as I got my 3 meals a day, it shouldn't take long to find him. But I couldn't take the chance of being recognized by whoever tapped my phone. I was sure whoever it was just waiting for me to show my face. Nicky Baca was dreading his upcoming appointment with the architect. After his men lost me in the subway, he was really scared. But the phone tap clued him in to where I could be headed. The group he sent to DC turned up nothing on me, and so far, the casing of Crane and Company had also proven fruitless. I must be in Dalton, he convinced himself. So, out of desperation, he lied. He told the architect his boys had seen me near Dalton, and he was going there to handle the matter himself. Nicky figured that if things went sour, he could rabbit over the border into Canada. As far as Seymour was concerned, he and Pete Jackson were waiting for Blackie to show up with the payoff. Pete had the bundles of government papers stashed away in a cabin far up in the woods. The plan was that they would split the money Blackie got for the plates, and then Blackie would pack up the paper and deliver it to their benefactor, and no one would be the wiser. Candy had the advantage. She knew where the paper was and had learned about my involvement. What she didn't know was who the connection in Dalton was. And she also knew, thanks to Hank, about Sloan. There was talk on the streets of DC about an engraver who skipped town, owing a prominent bookie 18 grand. It didn't take a genius to figure out I'd end up in Dalton. So she sent Dirk and the boys up here to watch me and grab us all once I had the pieces all together. It didn't take long to find Seymour. I found him having dinner with another man, laughing and drinking like they didn't have a care in the world. The way I figured that they had no idea that Blackie was pushing up daisies, and they were waiting for him to finish the deal. But I knew that Blackie was cautious. He liked to work in the shadows. And I knew he was smart, but not smart enough to come up with the plan on his own. He was just a puppet with someone else pulling the strings. If I was to get anywhere, I had to convince Sloan and his partner that Blackie sent me. But first I had to be sure about Seymour's friend. After they broke up and left, I followed the friend home, camped out in my car. And would you know it, the next morning he went to work at Crane and Company. It's amazing what a mailbox can tell you. That evening, I followed his friend, Pete Jackson, right back to the same dinner, same table, right next to Sloan. I strolled right over. As they looked up from their beers, I laid down the crisp dollar bill with the torn left corner.
"Where did you get that?"
"Blackie sent me," I answered, as dry as the right mix of gin and vermouth.
Blackie who?
"Enough, Seymour. Why didn't Blackie come himself?"
He got dumb, almost got caught breaking into the wrong lady's safe, so he's lying low and sent me.
"Do you have the money?"
"Do you have the paper?"
I just want my cut."
Seymour declared impatiently. It's funny how greed can supersede better judgment.
We can make the swap under the bridge down by the river tonight, say 10 o'clock.
Suits me fine. I can't wait to get out of this hick town.
Hey, watch your mouth. I live here.
Indeed, you do. On my way back to my room, I had two big problems to think about. I was no closer to finding the plates and the money. Second, whoever had them needed the paper and knew I was in Dalton. What I didn't know was both answers were waiting for me. As I reached the door to my room, I could smell that same rancid perfume burning in my nostrils. I flung open the door, and there lay Nicky dead on the floor with his neck sliced open, oozing blood. Behind him lay others in a similar condition. And Candy's enforcer, Hank Teller.
Tell me who has the paper.
So, it was Candy's scheme all along.
Never mind that. Where's the paper?
Okay, Hank, you got me. I'm supposed to meet them at 10. Yeah, the printer and the engraver. They're expecting their payoff.
Dirk, keep an eye on Monroe while I bring the car around. We wouldn't want to keep your pals waiting.
I had to think fast. Dirk, is that a bee on your shoulder? Just like the dumbbell he was, he cried.
Where is it?
Right there, be still. As I hit him as hard as I could on the left temple, Dirk went down, I grabbed my gun, and I went out the window. I snuck around to the front of the hotel as Hank just pulled up. I stooped down and moved along the driver's side, and as Hank stepped out, I turned his lights off, belting him across the back of his head. I manhandled him into the back seat, took his keys, tied his hands and legs with his belt and tie, stuffing his handkerchief in his mouth. Then I walked over to a phone booth, called the police, pretending to be the hotel manager, about the unconscious man lying on 3 dead bodies in room 106. Then 3 blocks later, I called the cops again, this time as a guy ratting out on his buddy about a deal to sell government paper tonight under the Dalton Bridge. I must say that once Hank managed to come to, he proved to be quite the conversationist. Of course, it took a little persuasion before he finally opened up. How's the eye feeling, Hank?
I had worst.
Hank muttered. I piped up, let's go over it one more time, shall we? Hank looked up.
I told you already it was Candy.
And? I said like I was grilling a stoolie.
She planned it all, like I told you. Blackie came to her about a guy who knew a guy in trouble in D.C.
That would be Mr. Sloan, I prompted.
Yeah. But only Blackie knew who he was. So, Candy planned it out. Anyways, Blackie had his ideas. He found himself a better deal. We didn't know. Anyway, Blackie had gotten the plates and was supposed to bring them to Candy along with the paper. But he was late, so I sent Dirk over to help him find his way.
So, it was Dirk who killed Blackie?
Yes. How many times do I have to tell you?
And the money? I prompted.
I told you it belongs to the architect. Blackie switched sides. Why are you asking me the same questions over and over again, Monroe? Why?
Hank demanded. I sighed as I said, well, you see, Hank, the radio reception out here is pretty poor. So until I get closer to the city, you'll have to do for entertainment. Now once again from the top. It was already dark as we crossed the George Washington into Manhattan. Hank didn't get to enjoy the view, hog-tied on the floorboard of the back seat. Once back in town, I called up my buddy, Sal, and took Hank over to his place to sit on Hank for a while. Then I headed uptown and parked not too far away from Candy's hotel. 2 things I was counting on. Candy had goons spread out pretty thin looking for me in D.C. and in Dalton, so protection should be light, making it easier to get in. And that Candy would have the plates upstairs in her penthouse. Getting in the hotel was easy. All it took was pouring a little whiskey on my jacket, and stumbled through the lobby like any other guest returning from a bender. Nobody gave me a second glance. I took the elevator to the top floor and looked for a way up to the penthouse. I stepped out onto the outside foyer, and right there was a door labeled Service Maintenance. I jimmied the lock and climbed up the ladder to the exit door of the penthouse and out to the wraparound terrace. Most of the lights were out as I worked my way around, There she was, standing in front of the fireplace with a drink in her hand. She heard me as I came through the terrace door.
Chester, I thought I gave you the night off.
I'm not Chester.
Monroe.
Surprised? I thought you wanted to see me, dollface. Give me the plates, I said.
Have you lost your mind?
I have the paper. Where are the plates? Look, you have the plates, I have the paper. One is useless without the other. So, here's what we're going to do, partner. You give me the plates, and I keep the paper. Since I can't print money without a press, that's where you come in. You get the presses together and bring over the paper and plates.
What makes you think I'd go along with this?
Because you have no choice, do you, dollface?
All right, Monroe, you win. They're in the safe.
Great, let's go get them.
Anything, just go. And stop calling me dollface.
All right, Candy. But I'm going to have to tie you up first. Business, you understand. I knew that as soon as she got loose, she'd make finding me and killing me her mission in life. She made me wonder how anyone so beautiful could be so evil. Go figure. But I had my own mission. The city streets were crowded with folks making their last-minute Christmas shopping. Even though the stores were open late for the season, closing time was coming soon. I ducked into Woolworth's and picked up an extra-large candy cane, along with a large greeting card with good old St. Nick smiling on the cover, in which I placed the candy cane, along with one of the bills still in the bank wrapper and about 12 feet of green garland. Traffic was heavy, so it took a little time to make it over to Sal's place. We tied Hank up in the garland, just like a Christmas tree, with the greeting card pinned to his collar. Poor guy, he just kept squirming with his eyes bugged out the whole time. We told him we were taking him for a ride. He whimpered the whole way. Just as we approached one of the architect's bookie joints on Houston, Sal opens the passenger door and pushed Hank out to the gutter. I didn't bother to sign the card. And as for the plates, I sent them first-class mail, wrapped up nicely in Christmas paper and ribbons, addressed to good old Tom Flattery, Treasury Building, Washington. I'd give anything to see the look on his face when he opens it. And along with the plates, a postcard from Dalton on the back of which I wrote that. He may want to contact the Berkshire Sheriff's Office if he still wanted Sloan. Merry Christmas, pal.